The Tigray region of Ethiopia has become a bloody battlefield in recent weeks. Nobel Peace Prize winning Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed launched a military offensive in the region, targeting, he said, the Tigray ruling party, accusing them of trying to destabilise the democracy he wanted to build. The Tigray leaders were in power in central Ethiopia for decades before Abiy. In just a few weeks, bombings, massacres, ethnic divisions have all been reported, and at least 20,000 people have been forced to flee their homes. It's a conflict that has already spread beyond Ethiopia's borders and is said to risk destabilising the wider region. To get his perspective, we can speak to advisor and commentator on the African Union, Adem Abebe. Thanks so much for your time. Mr. Abebe, can I perhaps firstly ask you a bit more about Tigray and the Tigray Party there? I believe those Tigrayan fighters decades ago toppled a dictator in Ethiopia. They were seen as heroes in the country. What is their position today?
Thank you very much for having me. Indeed, the Tigray People's Liberation Front were the principal actors that brought the former communist Derg regime down in the early 1990s. And because of their military strength, despite their small size, they were central to the Ethiopian political discourse. They were at the top of the political process for 2.5 decades. And since 2018, they have felt like they have been pushed out of the power center in Addis Ababa. And at the moment, as you said, there is conflict, partly because they resist what they consider is an authoritarian shift from Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, while he, on the other hand, accused them of resisting the democratic reforms that he's leading, but most importantly, of orchestrating, supporting organized armed ethnic groups in different parts of the country.
I want to talk to you about the different ethnic groups in a moment, but indeed Abiy Ahmed says he wanted to overhaul the country. I imagine that he was overriding a lot of what that Tigray People's Liberation Front had put in place. But do you think Abiy Ahmed's rule was in question? Is that why he has launched such an offensive at this particular time?
I don't think his rule was in any imminent danger. I think the contestation has been growing. There has been an escalation of brinkmanship from both sides, but ultimately there was resistance, particularly from the TPLF region, the Tigray region, and that they have essentially rejected federal authorities, and in return the federal government has said that it doesn't recognize them, and most recently cut subsidies to the region. So I don't think his power was in any imminent danger, but he obviously wanted to project his rule across the country, and the Tigray region particularly was resisting. It was not recognizing the federal authorities in Tigray.
The Tigray side has called on the African Union to step in. Currently, Abiy Ahmed refuses to enter talks. Where do you see the movement on the negotiation side of things?
I mean, the Prime Minister has said that this is a law enforcement process, and because it's a law enforcement process, it's an internal affair, that the Tigray region has violated the constitutional order, and so far they have resisted any pressure from the international community, the African Union, but also from other actors. And quite frankly, it's very unlikely that they will relent on their pursuit. And the only chance, perhaps, is if this war drags on. The longer it drags on, I think it will be very difficult for Abiy Ahmed to resist the pressure, and perhaps even the domestic support for the war, which principally emanates from the resentment to the past authoritarianism and oppression of the TPLF, might start to wane. I think that there might be a popular fatigue if this war does not end quickly. So as the longer it goes ahead, I think there will be more pressure domestically, but also internationally to bring everyone to the table.
Indeed, because already we're seeing this conflict spread beyond Ethiopia's borders. We've seen refugees across the border to Sudan and airstrikes targeting Ethiopia or Eritrea's capital.
Yeah, no, the war has indeed been a tragedy. Thousands of people are fleeing. A lot of people have been displaced. And of course, we've seen some atrocious crimes committed, including against civilians. And with the rocket attacks now, particularly against Eritrea, the chances of its internationalization have increased. So far, I think there has been limited international involvement, including from Eritrea. But again, as I said, the longer this drags on, it will create a sense of stalemate. And that will involve a lot of international actors, most certainly Eritrea, but possibly other actors as well.
When it comes to the military might of these two sides, Abiy Ahmed, of course, has the national army. Going to the Tigray group, I imagine they have experienced fighters. What kind of military do they have?
Indeed, I think it's more the leadership. The old guard of the TPLF indeed have a large experience in fighting guerrilla fighting, insurgency, and other kinds of warfare. But if you look at the large part of the actual fighters, they are young people that were born after the war. But I think they have the advantage in the leadership to lead a very protracted war. But otherwise, I think in terms of size, in terms of determination as well, the central government could potentially overwhelm them. But it's not going to be an easy win. It can take time. And over time, as I said, the longer this goes on, popular fatigue may come in, and there may even possibly be a fatigue within the military as well. So I think the best chance for the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is to end it quick, and that would be very, very difficult.
Of course, Ethiopia has 10 different regions. This is just one of them. I believe there's many different ethnic strongholds, though. Could we see, this kind of spilling more internally into disputes between different ethnic groups?
Well, I mean, obviously there has been ethnic conflicts in different parts of the country, and the army was deployed to stem those violence. And if the military is drawn, if large parts of the military is deployed to the front lines in Tigray, there is indeed a chance that there may be occurrence of violence again in some parts of the country. But it really depends on how long this will take. And in the end, I think ultimately what is important for Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is to end this cycle of conflict. To end this sense of victor's justice, where you have new forces trying to eliminate essentially old forces. So whether it will be with or without the TPLF, ultimately I think the future of the country will depend on dialogue that brings in all these various actors across the country and chart a new future. And I think the test of Abiy Ahmed's legacy will not necessarily be in winning this war, but in charting a new way that will essentially recognize dissent, not just within his party, but also outside.
Of course, Abiy Ahmed, who came to power just a few years ago and was awarded that Nobel Peace Prize for making a deal with Eritrea. But on the politics within his own country, how do you feel overall he's done so far?
Well, I think, obviously in the beginning there was a lot of hope and there was a lot of support for him as well. But over time, a few months later, reality beat in, and he has overall tried to project a pan-Ethiopian politics, and he has been trying to welcome rebel groups and other actors. But increasingly, you can see the frustration and also the recognition that opening up the country may not always be the easiest way towards democratization. So you can see a sense of relapse, a sense of frustration, and that led ultimately to some violence, and on that basis, detention of some political leaders, and ultimately we have seen the conflict with Tigray region. So I think you can see that the hope and even the ambition that Abiy Ahmed had in terms of building a peaceful democratic dispensation is facing challenge.
Okay, Adem Abebe, thanks so much for taking time out and speaking to us here on France 24, bringing us your expertise.
Thank you very much.
You're watching live from Paris. If you're just joining us, these are our top stories this hour. Austria is back in lockdown. Sweden is now putting limits on the size of social gatherings there. More measures being put in place to stem the spread of COVID-19 across Europe. Hitting hard, the area is already badly battered by a hurricane just a fortnight ago. Iota has made landfall in Nicaragua with heavy rains and storm surges forecast.